when I say change the program in limiting what we can throw away in terms of how much we can put out on a particular week, as a town, we average 65 pounds per household per week, where the state average is 47 pounds. So we need to lower that, and the way to lower that is to increase what people recycle. And what we need people to realize is every dollar that we can save in tipping fees is a dollar that could be spent in the schools for another teacher in a classroom, could be spent in public safety, in terms of more police, more fire, better roads. We have a finite amount of money, and if we can save it by educating people to the value of recycling, then it's going to be better for all of us in the long run. And that's how I believe you present it to the people, that this is in your best interest to recycle, not just for the environment, but in the services that we will be able to provide.
Thank you. If anyone has any cards with questions, pass them this way. I see some white cards floating around, and I encourage you to write down your questions if anyone needs an index card. Thank you. Okay, the next question will go to Mr. Callaghan first, and the question is, the town has had the opportunity to purchase land. The town has had the opportunity to purchase land. Recently, however, the town has been unable to act on this. What are some possible solutions for the town to acquire limited open space?
Well, you know, we have acquired open space. We just acquired the Smith property, which is a large, contiguous piece of land in the center of town. And I think that is going to be one of the pieces to the puzzle in solving our infrastructure needs as we move forward. Today, the citizens, the taxpayers, made a concerted effort by a huge margin to purchase that piece of land. Other pieces of land, we can't just simply buy every piece of land that comes up for sale. It's just not economically feasible for the town. We have to be selective. We have very identifiable needs in our schools, our police station, in all likelihood our fire station, DPW garage, that are coming up either very soon or in the not so distant future. If we just say that every piece of land that comes up, we need to grab it to preserve open space, then we're going to be setting ourselves up so that the taxpayers are not going to be able to afford to take care of the infrastructure needs of this town. There are differences between needs and wants. If we need something like the Smith property, I came out fully in favor of that. You know, I went against a member of my wife's family who was involved in that, but I saw the need that the town had for that to be able to take care of our infrastructure and to be able to service the people in town. When other pieces of land come up, there has to be, one, a way that we can pay for it without taking away from other projects that we're going to be facing. And two, we don't want to be taking money out of our operating budget, which is stretched as far as we can right now. We want to maintain quality schools, safe and a safe town with quality roads. And we have to be selective. So I'm in favor of open property, but not at the expense of schools and safety.
And Mr. Giardino?
Thank you. You know, as over the years, as I talk to people here in town, there's a very diversified population with different ideas on different subjects. But what's interesting is that the one issue that virtually everybody I talk to in town agrees on is that we have an obligation, we have a desire to preserve the character of North Reading, and that character is involved in the size, the small town atmosphere, this type of thing. And I think that that the idea of open space, the idea of acquiring land, is absolutely critical to trying to maintain that. So, you know, my attitude is that you know, I am in favor of acquiring open space. And in order to do that, however, I'm also in favor of fiscal responsibility. We've got to live within our means. And I think this town, its history has been to find creative ways to match both. From the Hillview, I came here 18 years ago, shortly after we came here, the Hillview project came up and happened, and that's been a valuable tool in trying to do this, and I think we need to continue to be creative to find ways to acquire this open space. I'm also in favor of having a plan for this, okay, which we do have a plan, I understand, that's was established in 1995. I think that plan needs to be updated, and we need to continue to find creative ways in which to get this done, to, as I say, preserve the character of North Reading.
Mr. Cavanaugh, would you like to take another minute?
Please. In reflecting, as Phil was answering, this past year, we've been presented with 3 pieces of property that the town has had the opportunity to purchase. The Smith property, which I wholeheartedly supported. The Wheeler property, which, again, I wholeheartedly supported, as did the taxpayers, as did the voters. There was a third piece of property that came before us that just fiscally, in my opinion, would have hurt the town more than it would have helped it in terms of preserving open space. We were very fortunate in that the gentleman involved in that provided us with easements that is going to lend itself to passive recreation in the use of that property and being able to get to other pieces of town property out there. It was the best deal possible because we got the use of that land for passive recreation and we didn't have to pay for it. The man was very generous in doing that. That's what I supported. And again, that's what I call being selective and understanding how to prioritize and what's in the taxpayer's best interest.
And Mr. Giardino, Dad?
You know, with respect to, I think the town has done a good job with open space so far. I think that my problem is probably in the area of planning. I believe a lot of what we've done has been kind of reactionary rather than planned and thought out. And I think that, you know, we do need a plan. I agree with the decision in the Rodman property. I have a problem with the method that it happened. I'm a believer in supporting committees, allowing committees to do their job, and allowing them to go through the process. But I think the result was right, and I think we need to continue to be creative to find the ways to keep this town in the character that it is. Thank you.
The next question goes to Mr. Giardino first, and that is the recent school budget passed at town meeting meant the elimination of several teacher positions. How do you propose to make sure there is an adequate pupil-to-teacher ratio?
Well, you know, I think that the budget was something that was a drawn-out, difficult process, and something that I know the school committee agonized over, as did many people. And I think that in this particular year, we're faced with the budget we have. There hopefully are certain monies that may be freed later on down the road, which can be devoted to the schools, or if that's necessary. But absent going for an override, you really got to live within your budget. I think that the schools are critical. I think some people kind of underestimate the roles the schools play in this town. The schools have been the reason, one of the major reasons that this town has had the tremendous boom it has. It's certainly one of the major reasons that property values have gone through the roof. The schools are very well respected in North Reading and have been very, very successful. I have seen that from the time when I first came here to the schools, the colleges that kids were going to the colleges they're going now. I mean, we're sending kids all over the country to all the best schools because they're coming out of North Reading schools. So, you know, I'm absolutely committed to schools, but you've also got to be committed to the fiscal realities of the current situation.
Mr. Cavanaugh?
Yeah, first of all, I would question the premise of the question. I don't believe the schools did lose, I don't believe there was a net loss in staffing. But setting that aside, the budget process was, as most years are, it was long and arduous, and there were difficult decisions that had to be made. At our selectmen's meeting before, that took place before town meeting, the same night as town meeting. I made a motion to add money that we found in a Neswick account to the schools to help them get to their budget. Their target was a 2.5% increase. They made, I believe, a valiant effort to get there, especially from where they started with unanticipated special needs costs that appeared through no fault of their own. They got down to a number, and we were able to, as a board, recommend moving some money from a Neswick account in order to bring that balance where they were, I believe, $30,000 to $40,000 above a 2.5% increase. We need to increase revenues. I mean, the Berry property sitting right down the street here is a perfect example of it. We have to find ways to increase what we bring in for revenues. When your total costs are 80% or 75 to 80% in both the municipal side of government and in the schools are locked into your contracts, and the cost of living increases that employees get and step increases they get, the geometry of the structure says that you're going to have difficulty living within 2.5%. Again, we need to find economies of scale. We need to find a new way to do things that is less expensive. We're making great strides in adding technology here in Town Hall, which I think should lead to some efficiencies, which hopefully in the future will lead to less costs for us to operate government, and I know the same thing is taking place within the schools.
Mr. Dunedin, follow-up?
Thank you. You know, as I've said, I think the schools play a major role here in what this town is all about, and I am in favor of a low pupil to student, teacher to student ratio. I think that we do need to find new sources of revenue. We do need to find ways to save money on all ends across the board, which I think has to do with technology, has to do with as well as new sources of revenue. We have several projects here that have not moved ahead that will add to the tax base, like the J.T. Berry Center, as Kevin's mentioned, and other issues. So I think it's really critical that we find these added revenues, but we must live within the means that we have. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, every year we go through the budget process, and it's always tough with the revenues that are available. The one thing people need to remember is we have a tremendous school system here in North Reading. The graduates of North Reading High School go to some of the finest universities in the country. We're fortunate that we have a very dedicated teaching staff, and even more fortunate that we have very dedicated parents that take a complete interest in their son and daughter's education. That's where education starts. It's at home, and with a dedicated teaching staff and a school department that's doing their best to stretch the dollars. When you have unexpected costs like the special need budget, and that's not to say it's anybody's fault. Those costs come, we have to pay for them, we have to meet our obligations. Fortunately for us, the professionals that we have in charge of our schools, even through tough budget times, and through the support of the people in town, our schools have remained top shelf and second to none in the state of Massachusetts.
Okay, the next question will go to you again, Mr. Gallagher. How would you address the lack of affordable housing and also senior housing for those who wish to downsize and remain in town?
Well, you know, I've lived this personally. My mother-in-law had a nice big house over on West Park Street, has lived in the town of North Reading for her entire life. And she was faced with the prospect of rising property taxes on a fixed income, and it financially just wasn't viable for her. It was getting to the point where she couldn't afford to live in her own home. My wife and I were fortunate enough that we were able to bring her into our home. She's always been a part of our family, but now she lives right there with us, and it's been a great experience for all of us. Not every senior citizen has that opportunity that they have their children still living in town. And like my mother-in-law, the one thing she wanted to do more than anything was to stay in North Reading. This was her home.